Oh, hi everyone. It's John Strebler coming to you from beautiful Northwest Washington, where it's been nice and sunny lately, and the red nose is not from me drinking too much before making this. It's from working in the yard today. But I'm the editor of John Strebler's Investment Outlook, or JSIO. It's a weekly newsletter. Been writing that since 2018, following some 40 years of working with Richard Russell at Dow Theory Letters as an analyst and a writer. So I've been in this business since 1974, and I want to tell you a little bit about my newsletter, including a free offer. I'll tell you about that right now. My newsletter costs $325 a year. It's not cheap, but it comes out every week. 6, 7, 8, 9 pages of detailed information every week in your email box by Sunday evening, so that you're ready to do anything that you need to do that week. So 52 weeks a year, $325, covering the stock market, covering fixed income, which is bonds and CDs and so forth, covering the precious metals, which is my specialty. You know, there's a lot of talk lately about gold. Everybody's getting into gold. You know, well, I've been doing that since 1974. Been specializing in gold and silver and recommending them. And really, the last 16 months or so, about 16 months ago, I saw some big things coming up in the gold market. 5 or 6 big forces that could move gold dramatically over a long period of time. And so I recommended people start boosting their investments in gold and silver, mostly gold back then. And sure enough, we're seeing a lot of that now with gold going up. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. Next week, just a little teaser, next week I'm going to go back and look more closely at gold and silver, what's coming up with them, and how you can play them. But today I want to introduce the newsletter and let you see if you want to take a free trial. 4 weeks, every week in your email box for 4 weeks. Check it out, see what it's like, see if you like it. So here's what my newsletter looks like. On the top, you can see it there. Left-hand side, we start off with something called Spot Check. And so every week I do a real quick recap of some of the main things that happened during the previous week in the stock market. And down below that, oops, I got to use my mouse, don't I? Down below that, we got the stock market. Then we're going to look at what's happening in fixed income, which again, bonds and CDs and interest rates. Below that, precious metals, gold, silver, platinum, and the mining shares. There's a lot of opportunities there. There's a lot of profit potential still ahead. And then the currencies. On the right-hand side, you'll notice 3 charts. 3 very important things to take a look at. One is the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and you'll notice there's red there. I'm telling people that the stock market is very dangerous right now, and I specifically recommended when this came out. This came out on July 6th, Saturday. I recommend selling immediately. A healthy portion of your stocks for people that weren't really a long-term perspective. So anyway, Dow Jones Industrial Average, MDI, which stands for Market Direction Indicator. It's my own proprietary index that tells me what the big trend is in the stock market. And below that, Strebler Inflation Index. Inflation's a big key to all of these markets. And so if we can figure out what's going on with inflation, we got a big jump on everybody else. So page 1 is your introduction. Page 2 is a bunch of other charts. Here's the NASDAQ chart on the left, and on the right, the Dow Jones Transportation Average. Below that is the NYSE Advanced Decline Line, and to the right of that, Standard & Poor's 500. Once again, you see red, you see danger. So that's what I'm telling people in the stock market. At the bottom of the page, there's the gold market on the left, and then on the right is what's called a relative strength chart. So relative strength is an old technique that we use. It usually gives you a jump on the trend changes. So when relative strength charts switch, pretty soon you'll see the market itself switch. Well, this one is comparing the price of gold to the stock market. And here I'm trying to figure out, what are the big boys doing? You know, the big smart money around the world. Are they mostly looking at stocks? Are they mostly looking at gold? Well, it's been in the stock market's favor for years, but that changed earlier this year. And now the big money's going into gold. And it's going to continue to happen for a bunch of reasons I've been writing about and write about more in this issue here. Finally, we've got three more charts. One is the U.S. dollar on the left. The third is the yield on 20-year Treasury bonds. And then finally, the price of crude oil. So those are the most important markets. If we can see what's going on there, then that helps us make our investment decisions. On the right-hand side, then I start my commentary. Now that we've looked at some charts, here's going to talk about what happened last week. Well, last week the big story was the BBB, the Trump's big beautiful bill, and 59% of Americans opposed it. There's a lot of reasons for that. It's got a lot of nasty stuff in it that we really don't want. But what are you going to do? It passed, and the good news is that the beneficiaries of that bill are the wealthy and businesses and corporations and the stock market. It's one big reason the stock market's been going up so much the last few months, because people figured that bill was going to pass. Sure enough, it did. Trump signed it, and now it's the law of the land. But going over to our next page, then I'm talking about why nevertheless, it looks like the stock market is due to tank in the near future, to correct, to take a big drop. And so we go over that, including this chart here. This is an ETF, an exchange-traded fund that looks at non-U.S. stocks. Now, I've been recommending the stock market, for years, but I've been recommending non-U.S. stocks the last few years. And this year, that really paid off. Following Trump's announcement on tariffs and some of that other nonsense, why money started pouring into the foreign stock market, and you can see that thing just soared higher, but it's now to a danger area too. So, and then after that, I take a look at what's going on with interest rates. And in interest rates, it's all about borrowing. That's the big story. This BBB is going to add $3 or $4 trillion to the U.S. debt. Meanwhile, other countries around the world are borrowing like crazy. That's all putting upward pressure on interest rates. And then this next page, you're going to see a type of chart that you don't see very often anymore. It's a point and figure chart on the upper left there. Point and figure charts were developed years ago, but not so popular anymore. Well, I learned about them back in the mid-1970s, especially from a guy named Jim Dines. Jim Dines wrote an investments newsletter. He was a market analyst and known as the original gold bug. He started recommending gold in 1966, I think. But Jim wrote a book about 400 pages long on technical analysis, really a masterpiece. But the book mostly talked about point and figure charts. And so I studied that thing. Jim gave me a copy of that. I worked with him back in the 70s, and I studied that thing. And then, I've added 5 decades of refining it. And so these point and figure charts, they're very helpful, and they show things that other charts don't. This chart right here shows that interest rates, yields, they've been going up for quite a while. And the weight of the evidence is that that's going to continue. So therefore, interest rates go up, bond prices go down. I recommend the last couple weeks my subscribers lighten up their positions in the bond market, because it's likely that bond prices will be declining for the foreseeable future. Then finally, I move on to talk about the precious metals, which again are my specialty. I've been following those very closely since 1974. And when taking a look again at this gold versus the stock market chart and talking about why I think Gold's been going sideways the last couple of months, I guess, maybe after a big run, but why I think it might be getting ready for another big move up. And if you, well, if you stay tuned next week, I'll talk about it more. Video next week. Based on next week's newsletter. Then I end up with a section called Asset Allocations. People have asked me to, put down recommendations of where they should have their money, and so I'm suggesting 30% in the stock market, but be ready for a sharp drop in the very near future. You might want to lighten up on some of your stocks if you're a nimble trader. Fixed income, again, that's going to be CDs or government bonds, really, and been recommending lightening up there as well. Precious metals, I want to be at 35% there. That's the highest allocation of any of these categories, because I think that they've got a long way to go still. And finally, that leaves us with 10% in cash. But actually, the final part of the newsletter every week is called Caught My Eye. I'm watching news from a variety of very credible sources all week long, and stories that catch my attention. I share them with my readers. I'll give a quick recap of some of the key points, and then a line or two with my own commentary on the thing. So here's a story on what the Mideast War is doing to various assets, various investment assets. Another story talking about how the immigration raids in the U.S. are leaving a lot of crops unharvested and affecting the price of foods. Here's an article about how corporations are spending a ton of money on capital expansion, which is really good for long-term growth. Another, positive for the U.S. stock market in the long run. Next story is about how we're going to see some wild action in the next few weeks and months, and some of the things that, can happen. So that's an important one to be aware of. Gold. Here's a story about gold, how it's starting to be considered a critical mineral. You've heard about lithium and deuterium, all these other weird things being critical metals, but now with gold taking over the role of a reserve currency in the world, taking over the role that the dollar has had, it's now being considered a critical mineral. So one more, tailwind, what is it? I don't know, wind that's pushing it forward for gold. So an interesting story there. Here's talking about how developing countries around the world are borrowing tons of money, and they're not going to be able to, service that debt. That's not a good thing, I don't think. And then a couple of stories about this big, beautiful bill, talking about what it's going to do and, how that's good and bad and so on and so forth. So that's a typical newsletter from me. It's 8 pages long. Where else are you going to get 8 pages of charts and information and recommendations on stocks and bonds and precious metals and cash from somebody that's been doing this stuff for 50 years? So yeah, $325 is a lot of money, but my readers think they get more than their money's worth out of it. And you can find out for yourself the 4-week trial issue. Listen, before I stop, I want to mention there's another video that I put up like 4 years ago, and it's something like noted gold bear turns bullish, and it's about me changing from being negative on gold to being positive on gold. I want you to take a look at that one. Not so much because of what it says about gold, but because it gives you a lot more on my background than on the newsletter, and who I am and what my experience is and so on and so forth. So listen, thanks for listening in, and I hope to get an email from you. Oh yeah, that's kind of important, huh? You want to try that free trial? The way that you get it is you send me an email. I'm kind of old school with the methods that I use. I try to keep it simple. Send me an email, jstrebler52@gmail.com, and I'll spell it out for you, JSTREBLER52@gmail.com. Just say, hey Strebler, I'd like like that free trial of your newsletter for 4 weeks. Bam. I'll add you to the list, and you'll get for the next 4 weeks. You'll get that in your email every Sunday. So thanks for listening, and we're out of here for now. But check out that other video, noted bear turns bullish on gold, and tune in next week when we take a closer look at how you can make money in gold. So, okay.